From the Creative Village BMI headquarters over here in Amsterdam. This is another session of BMI Inspires. Today it's about the on-demand economy, a business case in care. My name is John Boshagen. In daily life I work for BMI News Radio, where I'm hosting the podcast Pioneering Business Models, which of course I can highly recommend you. Now, today I'm hosting this session. And for the next 60 minutes, it's our ambition to inspire you with a lot of new insights about how to shift a business model. And therefore, I'm very delighted that we have invited two special guests, Maarten van Rixtel, the Managing Director of Sensire, a Dutch organization in care. Welcome. And Daan de Geus, who plays a home match, because he's a business designer over here at BMI. Welcome, Daan.
Thank you.
If you have any questions for these two gentlemen, please don't hesitate to ask them. You can put them in the chat, and you can already start doing this from now. And in the final quarter of this session, we have a question round. So I'm looking forward to a lot of questions, of course. Daan, let's start with you. This edition of BMI Inspires is about care. Can you tell me why do you, as BMI, have picked this certain topic?
Yes, certainly. So at BMI, we love to solve big and complex problems, right? And especially with impact on the society. So together with Maarten and Sensire, we set this ambitious vision for the future of care. And after that, we decided, why not partner up and try to see if we can make that vision a reality?
Yeah.
And we also thought, why not involve the BMI community to take them on this case?
Yeah, because there's a lot of things to do in care. Right? I think the cost of care over here in the Netherlands have already risen to 100 billion euros. 100 billion, it's amazing. And it even continuously is rising. So I think it's very clear that we think over here on the table, we need innovation to tackle this. And therefore I'm also very delighted that Maarten van Rixtel is here, because he's developing a platform, a new healthcare platform that does not exist yet. Maarten, we would really learn to know more about that, of course. I would say the camera is over there. Could you tell us and the viewers for the next 7 to 10 minutes, first of all, who Sensire is, a little bit more about the Dutch care market, and how do you get to this idea of this new platform?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Sensire is an elderly care organization in the eastern part of the Netherlands. We have a budget from about 180 million. 4,000 people are working with us. We have nursing homes, about 1,200 residents, and we have in home care about 5,000 patients a month, 10,000 a year. So when we are of course participating in a Dutch healthcare system that is, may I call, fragmented by design. So one of the problems we engage is how to make a future when there are so many players in the field of the healthcare. We have a hybrid market from private and public domains. The government doesn't pay for healthcare, that is the insurance, but the government determines the content of the insurance, and the insurance pays for the healthcare. So there's a separation, and that is one of the main problems in innovation. There's a separation between paying for the money, paying for the care, and delivering care. So in Holland there are many very little people who pay exactly from private for the care. That's all. Mostly it is of the insurance, and the fee we pay for the insurance is about 1,200 a year. That is an amount where we are. That is not much when we look at an international perspective. And when we are looking to the future, we are facing a few problems. First of all, rising of budgets. John said we had about 100 million euros a year in healthcare. When we are
billion,
billion, yes. When we estimate in 2040, it will be 170, 180 billion, so almost doubled. That is not the way we can go on. Secondly, we have a strong decrease in the labor market and an increase in the healthcare market. So because of the increase of chronic patients and the increase of elderly people who are vulnerable. And when we look at the system, what I said, it was very fragmented. You see that the business model where we all work in is not based on the future demand. We do only physical care. There is nothing we do digital. Nothing is a very little percentage of the care is digital. And secondly, we pay for the action and for the handling, and we pay not to do less. So those two systems make that we have an increase in budget in the coming years. So we have to look for a new business model in the Dutch system to conquer the problems we're facing. And when I look at Sensire, we made a very strategic but important decision in 2017. We said, if these are the problems in the future, and this is our business case, physical, so we have to go to patients, we have to do the care physical, and we are paid by action, then this business model has no endurance, sustainability in the future. So we have to change the business model, and we have decided not to invest anymore in the current system, in the current model of healthcare given by Sensire. So that is not because we do it wrong, but we think it's not good for the future. So we are going to the next few years we are delivering the care as we did, but we want to look for another business model, and we found it in the platform, in the commercial world, and we found it in the platform way of doing care.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this story. You said it will rise to 180 billion within 20 years.
Yes.
Gee, that's amazing.
Yes, that's a lot.
That's a lot indeed. Yeah. So there is, I guess, there's a problem. Maarten or Daan, Maarten describes, I guess, two kind of shifts here. Am I right?
Yes, definitely. So there are a few fundamental shifts that we see happening, and that's not just within care, but in all kinds of industries, but specifically also for Sensire. So the first one is the shift from physical to digital. And the definition, as we see it, is that you, instead of where you used to deliver products physically towards your customer, you now leverage all kinds of technologies to find new ways of creating that value for your existing, but also for your new customers, right? On the other hand, we also hear the shift here of moving from a pipeline into a platform.
Yeah.
And the big difference there is, instead of having your own process in creating value towards your customer, you focus on bringing together two parties to exchange value. So you are more a facilitator of a value exchange between consumers and producers of value.
Yeah. And so you already told us some things about these two shifts in general. Do you have some examples?
Yes, definitely. So let's start off with the fact that both shifts are fundamentally started by big developments within technologies, right? So what you see is that internet is becoming much faster. We see that processing power of computers is becoming much faster, and that means that new opportunities for business models arise, right? So focusing on examples for the digital shift first, so moving from physical to digital. That means that you're no longer focusing on, as a consumer, on buying a physical product, right? And then after a few years, you buy a new one and a version that is probably slightly improved. So let's take an example of the old school music albums, right? So back in the 90s, I love the Backstreet Boys, so I'm just going to come out with that. I love the Backstreet Boys.
You spend money on the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yes, all my savings.
All right.
So all my savings back then. And what you see is that they would release a new album every year or so. So me and my brother, after school, would jump onto the bikes up to the local record store, right? But before we could get our hands on that Backstreet Boy album, we had to take quite a lot of hurdles. So the first one is, there was always the question, is that physical album, has it arrived at my local store, right? Because the Backstreet Boys, they're massive. They have 100 million of albums to ship towards all these local places. So is it going to be there? That was the first one. The second one was, after we came out of school, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, would it be still there, or would it be perhaps sold out already? Right. So that was the second one.
Well, with the Backstreet Boys, that certainly is a possibility.
It's very likely.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. So, and the third one and final one that I'd like to list, and you already touched upon it, John, is the fact that it was fairly expensive actually to buy one album with like 10 songs.
40 billions in the time.
40 billions. That's billions. That's like massive.
Yeah.
Right. So
it is.
Yeah. So nowadays we have this digital shift, and we shifted into Spotify. So on my phone, I now have at my fingertips, I have all these songs. I have all the Backstreet Boys albums and also Britney Spears, for example. So that's just fantastic. And there are a few things that are key components of this digital shift. So the first one, thanks to having Spotify, we no longer have problems with distribution. So there's no longer a problem with packaging. No longer a problem with logistics and getting them from A to B.
Yeah.
No more middlemen. So there's a lot of saving there as well, and a lot of friction for me as a consumer to get what I want, and I want to listen to music.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the first one, and the second one, the friction. Now, what also is the effect is that because all these processes are out, is that it's going to be much cheaper. You can do it at a bigger scale. You don't need the packaging. So, well, that's much more accessible for me. What also makes this example very interesting for me as a consumer is that every time I interact with my phone, I generate data into Spotify. And Spotify uses that data to make my experience much more personalized. So in this way, they even recommend me NSYNC and 5, right, when I listen to Backstreet Boys. So that's just an incredible experience that I could have never gotten back in the days. So that leads to a better satisfaction for the consumer.
Yeah.
Now, then one more example for the pipeline to platform, right? So what you see is that the core characteristics of a platform is that it brings together supply and demand. So you always have a producer of the value and a consumer of the value on this platform. So we all know Uber. So for Uber, the producer of the value is the driver who has a car and in this way produces transportation. The consumer of that value, that's you and I, probably you sitting at home as well, we consume their transportation, right? So that's one fundamental part. A second fundamental part is the fact that the one who creates this platform doesn't need to have the assets that it offers. So Uber doesn't need to own the cars, right, in this case. And when we link that back to Spotify, the example, Spotify doesn't own the music either, right? They aren't a producer of the music. They just bring together the Backstreet Boys and Sony Music together with you and I. And in this way, it's also a shift to platform.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds rather interesting. So we've seen all these new business model development in the music industry, but healthcare market has been known for being very conservative if it comes to business model shift. How do you explain such a thing?
I think one of the basics of healthcare is that conservatism saves lives.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just a mindset.
Yeah, it is mindset. You don't treat people by trial and error. Mm-hmm. You treat them by evidence, scientific evidence. So in the mindset, it is conservative. Yeah. But there are also a few other points that make it difficult with the innovation. First of all, in Holland, you see the fragmentation. So the The way we organize is not by looking at the patient and looking what he needs. No, we're looking at the organizations who live in care, and the organizations define what is good or right. So, and as I told earlier, we pay by action. So organizations have benefits by paying by action, because more action is more pay, is more budget. So why change a winning system? And the third of all is patients in Holland have no possibility by voting by walking away.
Yeah.
Because they don't pay for the healthcare. They get healthcare, but they don't pay. So when they leave, no problem. There are a lot of patients elsewhere that you can take. So it has no.
And nobody actually feels the urgency.
No, there is no urgency.
Yeah. So now, what's your response to that?
Yeah, so what you usually see is that whenever an industry lags behind, right, it will get disrupted at some point. But the care industry up till now has been somewhat safe. But what you see right now is that the pressure is really building. So that care from 100 billion to 180 in just a few years, that's really putting up the pressure. But on the other side, you also see that the technology is rising to create with new solutions.
Yeah.
So while this complexity of the market has postponed the disruption, I think it's the time is right.
The time has come. So Maarten, what is the main reason why such a platform hasn't been developed before?
Because the system is good. We are in
Yeah, but we're paying like 100 billion euros a year in the Netherlands. So
yes,
I guess somebody thinks we have to do something about it.
the people in Holland are very satisfied with the system. So because we split paying and delivering, patients say, hey, I can go to my GP in 5 minutes. I wait and I get my advice. In 50 minutes, I am in a hospital.
Yeah.
Why go to internet and all these difficult things as the GP is around the corner?
Yeah. So Daan, if you want to successfully shift a business model, there has to be a problem. It has to be big enough, and people have to feel it.
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And what you see here is that at this moment, the motivation for some organizations is not really there yet to actually make a move. And for many organizations within whatever industry they are in, they don't really feel that pressure, right, to make that move for a shift.
Yeah.
But what you also see is that there's not enough money, right, to innovate, or they say that when their business is going down, we don't have the funds for innovation. And we see that whenever a business is declining, that this is the exact moment where you should make that shift, right?
Yeah.
And how you can do that is quite straightforward. Well, not for everyone, but it's straightforward. So you really need to focus on finding that new problem that you can solve, and really identifying the big problem in the market, and then experimenting with all kinds of solutions to get that right solution to solve it.
Yeah. Well, then in that case, Maarten, maybe the most important question I have during this session: what is actually the problem you want to solve with this healthcare platform?
Yes. First of all, we have no burning platform.
No.
So my advice to politics is stop funding wrong things.
Yeah.
Stop funding more money to healthcare, because you don't create the urgency to change. That said, I think there are a few things. In Holland, we have estimated about 5 billion euros go to bureaucracy. 5 billion.
Yeah.
So if we make healthcare easier for the professional and for the customer, we save 5 billion euros.
Yeah.
Secondly, there is more to healthcare than the professional. Dan had talked about the shift from a pipeline to platform. It is not right to think that healthcare is about professionals. There are a lot of more answers to problems than just go to a doctor. The third thing is that we need to focus not on healthcare but on health. Please try to stop healthcare by living a more healthy life and advice in healthcare. That are a few of the things that I want to create with the platform.
Yeah, and say like it's like 2025 and the platform is actually working. What does it do at that moment? Yeah, in your ambition, in your vision, how does it work? Because people are might wondering now.
I have a dream, but I don't know.
I have a dream. Well, there is the camera.
But I don't know what it looks right now. But when on a platform you find ways to solve your own problems. So the platform helps you to be boss of your own life and of your own healthcare. So,
well, suppose my knee hurts. You know, I have a bad knee. I've injured myself with playing football. How is the platform going to help me?
Yeah, you go on the platform. You say my knee hurts, and then you can have a few questions to determine what exactly do you need. So triage by doctors is like a computer. It is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So that can we do. So at the end, you may you may find that you have two solutions.
Yeah.
Instead of one, go to the GP. You have two or three solutions, and you can determine what is important for me, not what is important for my knee, but what is important for me. I can train. I can go to gyms and make my muscles more strong, or I go to GP. So what you do at the platform is give opportunities and choices.
Yeah. So nowadays, I would usually go to a doctor, you know, and then he will check my knee and maybe he will send me to the hospital. But you say that's not always the right solution.
No, that's mostly about 60% of the people going to a GP don't need a GP for solving their problems. So what you try to do is give more opportunities to handle otherwise.
Yeah, just tell the viewers also some of your own experience, because you were injured during tennis.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had an elbow injury, and so it hurt, and I said, my God, how do I get off the pain? So I went to the GP. Now, going to a GP is a good decision, but you have to take a half day off. Yeah. You have to wait in the waiting room. And then I came to the GP and said, I hurt my elbow, and please, could you do something about it? And he said, I can't do anything about it. Why not? No, it's not treatable. You have to rest. So I said to him, why don't you?
Because you told me that before.
Yeah, you could set it on your website. You could do. So I had a need to.
And this is something you want to perform with the platform.
Yes. Yeah. So the other we do in Sensire, we have another way of going with the chronic disease COPD.
Yeah.
One of the problems of COPD is that when you breathe out, that's the problem. Yeah. Not inhaling, but how do you call it? Exhaling. Yeah. So why don't you go to how do you call it? Monte Monica.
Oh gee, that's a difficult translation.
I have no idea.
Do a lot like this.
Yeah. When you go to a nice club with people and you play the Monte Monica.
That's a good translation.
That is more maybe better for you than going and go to a GP and take an inhaler to that kind of solutions I'm looking for.
I see what you mean, and Daan BMI is helping Sensire with this process, you know, to go to a platform. Is strategy always the starting point for this?
Yes, definitely, and it all starts off with the vision. And what I find very interesting is then that when you asked Maarten about what does the platform look like in 2025, We do not
No,
yet exactly know.
He doesn't know.
Now, we do, however, know that we have set a vision in 2025 that we want to give more control to the people who deliver the care, right, and who receive it, to give control back to their lives.
Yeah.
And what the platform is eventually going to look like, we'll have to see. And of course, we know that for a year in advance, but after that, we'll have to learn, right? So it all starts off with setting that ambitious vision for the future. So from that moment on, you can set your path and strategy, right, towards it. And whenever and if you, or I can tell you, you are going to lead off that path, you always know where your vision was, what effect you want to generate in the market, what impact you want to make, and then you always know where to go from there.
Yeah. And what actually is the part of this whole process where you come along? You know, what is actually the things that, how are you helping him?
Yeah. So we first, of course, started off with setting that vision and the strategy.
Yeah.
And after that, of course, beforehand, we dove into the customers and into the market. So what's happening in the market? What do we see? What are the customer needs, right? On the patient side, on the nurse side, on the coordination side, and we started off with that. After that, we created what we call the growth strategy. And now when you grow, and that's very important when you create a platform, you need to have a strategy for growth. So starting off with a platform, you always need to have a critical mass, is what we call it. So you need to have enough producers of the value, which in this case are the nurses. And you also need to have enough consumers of the value, who are the patients.
Yeah.
So if you don't have enough patients and and nurses on board, then you cannot make the matchmaking and facilitate it correctly, right?
Yeah.
So you need to grow really quickly towards that critical mass. And the importance there is that you keep the balance. So that's an important element of a platform. If there is a lot of nurses, right, on the platform, and there's only a few patients, then nurses would not want to work on there because they had to compete a lot for the customers. On the other hand, if you have too many patients and just a few nurses to take care of them, then the patients need to wait months to be taken care of. So that doesn't work either. So you really have to organize how your platform is going to grow and where that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So based on those phases, the next step that we took was, okay, for each stage, what are the processes that we need to have in place? So that means, how are we going to get people on the platform, right? Onboarding. How are we going to actually deliver that service? So that's what we've been designing as well. And you can imagine that that changes drastically as you grow. And underlaying, and that's the final one that I'll name here, is that if you know all the processes per stage that need to take place, you can create a team, right? So how many people do you need and what do they need to be doing? So that's what we call the operating model.
Yeah, so actually it's from structuring an idea, validating all the assumptions, and then scaling up. If I look at you, Maarten, it's not something that Sensire could have done them by themselves.
No. For us, it's we know what we don't want.
Yeah.
But we do not know what we really want. So when we do that by the trial and error, in 10 years' time, we are nothing. So we have to learn by the experiences of BMI for the process of learning, failing. So that is, for us, very critical.
Yeah, and you're still in the middle of this process, of course. Can you tell me which difficult decisions you already had to make?
Yes. Daan said you have to have vision, but you have to have another thing, as to decide that what you do now is not right. That is a problem in our organization. I as a CEO say, hey, we do not right. Now that's not a very beautiful comment on the current situation of Sensire. That's one. But when in this process, the most meaningful decision we had to make is to reduce complexity.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a very complex organization, but you can't get a complex system in a digital world. So you have to think in a totally different way. That is what we learned the last half year.
Is it like kill your darlings?
Yes, yeah. When you ask someone in healthcare how to do it, they personalize every problem. So we have in Holland 70 million problems. How can you get 70 million problems in a platform? That is not. So you have to reduce it. And so we thought, well, what's home care really? What is really the essential home care?
Yeah.
It's just the logistics company. We deliver packages at every house, but it's just the logistics. How complex the package is not the real issue. The issue is that you want to deliver stuff.
Yeah.
By doing that, we made it far more easy to go with BMI and to look for a software that can help us get our targets.
Yeah. So Daan, is it really all about simplicity? Is that the keyword?
In this case, it's reducing the complexity of the system. And what is important here is that we're always in between in some sort of a tango. So on one hand, we want to make sure that this new solution functions in the market, right? But if we are going to link up with all the parties that are involved, it's going to slow us down massively. We wouldn't be done in years. On the other hand, we want to go lean and mean, right? But if we are going all by ourselves, then it's not going to land and we cannot find the connection. So it's always about making that decision. Are we going alone or are we going to go together?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the second thing we had to do is to solve the problem of what is now the software on the platform.
Yeah.
If we try to develop a platform by looking from healthcare to platform, we would be software developers.
Yeah.
So we have, in deciding that it is a very simple problem, we could look in existing software, and we found in retail the best platform to use for healthcare.
In retail, actually.
Retail.
All right.
Simply said, home care is nothing else as delivering a pizza. Why don't you use the platform of a pizza for delivering healthcare?
Care as a pizza.
Care as a pizza. And the main benefit of this is that instead of having to develop a whole new kind of technology, we can use parts of it that are already made, and we can go much faster.
Yeah. And is it also, do you need to look at your business in a completely different way? Because that sounds like what Maarten is saying. That's how it sounds to me.
Yeah. And what you see is that when you look at the complexity of that, that's oftentimes one of the main issues, right?
Yeah.
So usually a business model shift is about you work with an existing organization already while trying to make that shift. Here you see that it's all about looking differently at the market as well, because there are so many interdependencies between all the parties.
And that is one of the main problems I have in the future in Sensire is don't look at a platform as an app. Because you may instrumentalize the digital way. It is a fundamental other way of thinking. And when we examine the proposition we make with the platform, it showed that if we look at healthcare, home care as in the digital way, we don't reduce cost, we make opportunities. So we make other ways possible, so we don't reduce cost, but we resolve the problem of budget.
Yeah. And actually, in which phase of the project are you right now?
This way we are now developing on the platform of retail. We are trying to make it the right way for us, and we used in September for introducing in Sensire. That's one thing. And the other thing is talking to the people my colleagues in Sensire by what to expect and how to change the thoughts of people so that they are accepting the platform as a platform, and that was an app.
Yeah. Because you decided to aim at the employees in the beginning, eh? Why not the whole package?
Because it's too tricky.
Yeah.
Yes, when the system is so good as it is in Holland, and when it's for the people so low budget, there is no urgency to go. When I introduce a platform and there is no urgency, why go to the platform? So we would invest a lot and little traffic on the platform. So what we try to do is, what is essential in home care? That is that the professional gives trust to people that they can use something.
Yeah.
So we try to use the professional as a way of introducing a digital way of thinking.
Yeah.
When the professional trusts the platform, the customer always will trust it.
Yeah.
And secondly, we don't know a lot about the real questions people and professionals have.
Yeah.
We assume a lot of questions.
So you
but
want to
we
collect
don't.
the right data?
Yes.
Yeah, so the approach is actually to execute it in different stages.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a smart approach? Yeah, of course it is, because you
Because we've designed
You've
it.
designed it,
Yeah,
of course,
definitely,
yeah.
because you really, when you go through the quick growth of an organization, you're going to be needing to redesign your organization as well, and your services and value to create accordingly.
Yeah, and how does the platform in the end is going to create value through technology?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the first one we're to see is that our vision is to make the lives of the caregivers, so the nurses and the patients, better. We want to give them control. But you can imagine that on one side, when you as a patient say, I want to be taken care of at this time by this person, doing these and these things for me, that creates a big wish list, right? It changes all the time. And on the other hand, you're going to have the nurse that does the same. I want to work at this moment, I want to do this kind of work. And that means that there's a lot of complexity in making that match. So that's really where the technology is creating that value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. And let's talk about these shifts a bit more. Let's begin with the physical to digital.
Yeah.
What can you say about the most important conditions for the shift?
Yeah, so the first one I would say is that whenever you're going to make a shift is to really create a new understanding of your customers. You've been serving your customers physically for a long time, and maybe you've got a bit lazy, right? And really getting to know who they are. So you really need to go back. Their needs have changed, the world has changed. What are they doing and what are their current needs? That's the first one. The second one is that it's not about the technology itself. So what you need is an understanding of the customer and then backtracking what kind of technology can we use for this.
Is that a misassumption very often?
Yeah, we see that quite a lot. So just to put it bluntly, they say, hey, we see blockchain coming up.
Oh yeah, we have to do
here's the
something with
blockchain.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
throw it at our customers and see whether it sticks.
Yeah.
And the last one, of course, is the capabilities of creating this technology, right? Of making that digital shift. And you see that that is often a challenge for organizations.
Yeah.
But I would say start off then with partnering, right? Finding a startup or finding other organizations to experiment with and see how you can together create new value.
Have you already found these partners?
Yes,
Maarten? Yeah,
we did. We did find partners in software.
Yeah.
And we are looking for partners who can give us the content of the platform on a way that professional thinks, hey, that helps me in getting the healthcare done.
Yeah. Daan, viewers might be wondering now, all right, this is a nice story, but how do we begin such a transformation?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
And it's actually based on the conditions that I just said.
Yeah.
So the first one is get customer oriented. Understand what
But
your customer.
every company says they're customer oriented.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But when we go out with companies and actually talk to customers, we just pick up the phone, we call them, we go and observe them, then we always see these light bulbs popping up like, oh, so this was.
This is what they're saying actually?
Yes.
Ah,
So
okay.
definitely. So that's the first one. The other one then is understanding to back engineer it,
Yeah.
having the capabilities. And the third one is using the data in the right way,
Yeah.
right? Because in the beginning, you're going to build a new product, you're going to build a new service. And after you got started, you're going to generate the data.
Yeah.
And that data is going to be your guiding light into the future.
Yeah, and you also have a BMI training this. Huh?
Definitely. So
Yeah.
yes, so thanks for
Yeah,
saying that
yeah,
one. So
I
yeah,
will say
so
that.
moving from physical to digital really requires a different way of mindset. So also a shift in how you design your organization and the value you create. And we're hosting a training on that soon. So
Right.
if you find that interesting, don't forget to sign up.
Absolutely, that's a good thing to know. And
Yeah.
do you also have some examples in the market, considering this shift?
Yeah. So my personal favorite, so the one that I find very inspiring, is Khan Academy. So I'm all about learning and development and also about education.
Yeah.
So that is a real big human right. And back in the physical world,
Maybe you have to tell the viewers what Khan
Yeah.
actually does,
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, so Khan Academy, they facilitate education and content for education around the world, so in a digital way. And back in the days, you really needed to be at the university and pay 100,000 euros a year to get a quality education, but they put it on an online platform, an open one for everyone to use.
Yeah.
And that's how you leverage technology and digital to create good value.
KhanAcademy.org.
Yes.
So let's focus on the second one, from pipeline to platform. Can you name like 2 or maybe 3 things that are very important when it comes to such a shift?
Yeah. So the first one, once again, is understanding the value trigger, is what I say. So do understand why people would come to your platform. So when we look at Uber, for example, Uber makes it very easy for drivers to A, find customers, right? And to B, also that administration. So they don't have to spend 2 hours in the evenings doing the administration, but they can go out and drive. And that's a very clear trigger for people to come onto the platform. On the other hand, you have the consumer, and for us, for you and I, we press one button and we have a car at our disposal. What
Works very smooth.
Yes, so what's not to like? The other one is really the balance again. So make sure that you balance the production of the value and the consumption of the value.
Yeah. Maarten, do you recognize what Daan is saying here?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a nice example for yourself?
Yes, I think that when I'm very interested in the digital world, so I read a lot of books about it. And when I read the book of Brad Stone about Jeff Bezos, I discovered that he didn't want to digitalize the bookstore. No, he wanted the freedom of choice. And that is exactly what we have to do in healthcare. We don't digitalize healthcare. We try to find ways to free the public, the patient, from the knowledge, the overwhelming knowledge of the doctor.
Yeah.
So that he can decide by his own instead of depending on the doctor. That's one thing. And the other thing was, there is a Dutch company, similar like Amazon, that's bol.com.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the book, they describe the development of bol.com, and they had 3 principles that they used all the way in their developing the country. The first was maximum freedom.
Yeah.
Secondly, maximum accessibility. And the third was, and that's the main thing why they developed in the way they thought, was maximum relevance.
Yeah.
So you don't give just a platform for choose. No, you want to make the platform relevant, and that's the main purpose we want to try to find for healthcare. What is, in our perspective, the relevance of this platform for professionals?
And these are also elements you would really like to involve in your new healthcare platform.
Sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, guys. Maarten, you as a person, we have heard about it. You know, you have already seen this digital vision. You have a clear vision of the future. I would reckon that maybe other persons in your organization within Sensire might not be as far. How do you cope with that as a CEO?
Yes, that's a problem.
Yeah,
so,
it's difficult. Yeah.
But because there are 2 things you have to do. You have to make a brand. So you don't ask what you want, but what they want is to solve the problem of today, and I want to solve the problem of tomorrow. That's one thing.
Yeah.
So we have to discuss a lot. I try to debate with all of the people around me because I want to try to see what you do now is good, but it's no solution for the future. And secondly, I want to offer them by our new platform an opportunity to see how it is possible to do it the other way.
Yeah.
So lots of discussion, lots of things, but with the view of the brand I want to make. And secondly, trial and error.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
looking, this is what we are offering.
Yeah.
Look for it and try it on in your own practice.
Yeah, Daan, is it very, very important to actually involve your employees with your own plans about the future, about the shift you have in mind?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And it all starts, of course, with taking the lead.
Yeah.
And showing that you are in the lead, right? So I think a very good tip is to take a look at what Maarten is doing. He actually says like, hey, we're not going to invest anymore in our current organization, and we have these and these and these reasons for it.
Yeah.
Rather, we're going to invest in the future. So take the lead, start off with that, create the right message, and then bring everyone along.
Yeah, and put a lot of energy in it.
Energy and involvement.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Maarten, is it also that, to my perspective, you're also taking a big risk here because the platform might flop?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if I do nothing,
Yeah.
I will slowly die. So in 10 years' time, I will not be here. Why don't we take a risk
Yeah.
by surviving?
No guts, no glory.
No guts, no glory.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, this BMI Inspire session has almost finished now. I want to finalize. Maarten and Daan, what advice do you have for all the viewers? Let's start with you.
So it really is all about going to your customer and find these unsolved needs, bring these together with new kinds of technologies, and then magic may happen. And if you do not have the capabilities to do this by yourself, partner up, find a technology partner and just start experimenting together.
Yeah. Maarten?
Yeah, for me, it is try to make an open vision on what is healthcare. Healthcare is not only getting things done. Healthcare is by trying to think what the best solution is. So thinking is maybe more practical than doing.
Yeah.
And that makes another perspective possible for the digitalization of health.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this advice. And I've seen where there are some questions over here. It's
Yes.
time to handle them. You've seen I put on my glasses. First question, are there many quality and security standards a chance or a threat to innovation? Daan, I think that's a question for you.
So let's take it in this case in specific, right? So what you see right here is that those quality and security checks are part of the complexity of the healthcare market.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it has not yet been disrupted, because of all these hurdles you need to take. And that's why it really works well to have someone on the inside, so Maarten and a Sensire, who is very aware of what's happening in the market, right? Quality, security-wise, and then an outsider's view who can take all the learnings from other markets and see how you can tackle those.
Yeah. But is it a chance or is it a threat? Yes.
Um,
Or is it just something you have to deal with?
Yeah, well, I think it's, if you manage to maneuver it well, it's an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? But mainly it's initially can be a big threat.
In Holland, it is a threat.
Yeah.
We are so afraid of losing our privacy in healthcare that when you try to think through by the privacy issue, you won't get anywhere.
No.
So you have to say, okay, I will challenge that problem in a later on. And what we did is not what I said before. We are not trying to digitalize the complexity of privacy and the complexity of healthcare, but we try to make it easy. So
Yeah.
that is the way we go with it.
Yeah, it's very complex indeed. So, the second question we have, how will the platform overcome human propensity to seek personal care? People might rather do it in person. Yeah.
Yes, but when I look at it, of course, at this moment I said healthcare in Holland is very good.
Yeah.
You see a GP, you can go to a specialist, you have home care nurses there. But in 10 years' time, they are not here. So it is truly nice to see a doctor, but in 10 years' time, there is no doctor to see. So you can't rely on the fact that there will be in 10 years' time.
Yeah, and if I can build upon that, what you see is that we're currently also focusing on, with the platform, on reducing the complexity and logistics as well. So planning the care, right, and going there and all the administration around it, so that actually boosts the quality of the interaction in person with people as well.
Yeah. This next question is interesting as well. A GP might also function as a break for expensive treatments. How will the platform reduce costs, taking in consideration most platforms generate more demand?
Yes, that's a good question, because in Holland we have a very distinguished system of GPs.
Yeah.
So you can't get to a hospital by not seeing a GP. You have to go to a GP because we are convinced that the GP will lower the cost of the whole system.
Yeah.
And that's truly the fact. But as I said earlier, 60% of the people who are waiting in the waiting room of the GP has no GP to see.
No.
Yeah.
So why don't we try to reduce the 60% and give them other opportunities for treatment than going to the GP? So yes, it is true that the GP has a good system, but try to help the GP to reduce their cost. Secondly, it is true that the platform can deliver more how do you call it, action and more handling, but we try to find handling without going in healthcare. We are trying to solve problems without using the healthcare system. And that's why we reduce the cost of the whole system.
Yeah. Would you like to add something?
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Such a good
Maybe I
answer.
can give an example.
Yeah.
In our region, in the eastern part, we have an understanding with the hospital for heart failure patients. We do that we monitor the patients at home. The patients are patients, so that's not that is what they have heart failure. That's no problem. But by monitoring the patients, we reduce the cost of going back to hospital because you are ill by 70%. So just by monitoring at home, we reduce cost of 70%.
Yeah, so if the demand would rise, we're still doing all kinds of things to reduce costs on the other side.
Yeah.
And that way you can compensate.
Yeah. Well, next question. That's interesting as well. What is really new about this platform if you compare it, like, for instance, huisarts.nl? I think that's a question for you, Maarten.
Yes, it delivers the huisarts.nl gives you the possibility to look for your problem and say, hey, what's the question? But it don't give you the right connection to help yourself. Just an advice, and you can't click to a nurse, or you can't click to a GP, or you can't click to a club to help you get more fit and so on.
Yeah.
So
Sounds more like a website, and
Yes.
this initiative sounds more like a real platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I can imagine is that we also on the platform, of course, try to include some of those questions at some point, right? So that we can make sure that the demand on our real care organization is going to go down, because people already find their answers at the huisarts.nl kind of solution. Yeah.
Well, Maarten and Daan, thank you very much. To finalize, Daan, I forgot the name of the training. What was it?
Business model shift from physical to digital.
Very well. Well, thank you very much. Maarten van Rixtel, the Managing Director of Sensire, and Daan de Geus, thanks for having us, business designer over here at BMI.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us, of course. My name is John Boshagen, and I wish you all the best in shifting your organization to a new digital age. Hope to see you again for the next BMI Inspires. Ciao.